Welcome to this explainer. I think we all just need a mental coffee break right now. Today, we're exploring 5 practical and honestly deeply spiritual insights drawn straight from our source material on how to lift your spirits when you're going through a tough time. Life gets heavy for sure, but as we'll see today, lightening your heart might actually be a lot simpler than you think. Okay, let's dive right into the core of this by looking at the author's central thesis. When we're stuck in a rut, it's so easy to get tunnel vision and just focus on the pain, right? But a simple shift in perspective reveals something incredible. Our struggles aren't the end of the road. Actually, they're the exact opposite. They are the very beginning of something wonderful. So, here's our game plan for today. We'll cover the bamboo node, small changes, the power of a smile, the impatient alien, and wrap up with the art of self-praise. All right, section 1, the bamboo node of adversity and understanding life cycles. The source material points out that human destiny naturally operates in cycles. It's kind of like a bamboo stalk. It experiences these periods of really smooth, rapid growth. Those are the easy times. But then it inevitably has to stop and form a hard, thick knot, or a node. Now, when you hit a period of adversity, you might feel like your growth has completely stalled out, like you're failing. But just like that bamboo, stopping to form that hard knot isn't a failure at all. It's an absolutely crucial period for your soul to gather life lessons. You're building the necessary strength and foundation so you can shoot up even taller in the next phase of your life. Moving right along to section 2, small changes and brighten spirits. When we're stuck in one of those difficult nodes, the text presents a really fascinating spiritual viewpoint. It states that humans are created as children of Buddha. And what that means is you fundamentally have a duty to embrace happiness. You are literally meant to be happy. Because of that, you have an obligation to embrace a positive self-image and actively look for the seeds of success, instead of just wallowing in a miserable self-image, which, let's face it, is never going to improve your situation anyway. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, try a simple physical intervention. If you're feeling down, go buy a bright red tie, something you'd never normally wear. Treat yourself to that fancy restaurant you've always walked past but never tried. Grab a new pair of shoes. Or say you're feeling stuck in a rut with a partner who complains a lot. Simply changing your makeup style can totally surprise them, spark a brand new conversation, and break the tension. It's crazy how these small, physical accents in your daily routine can unexpectedly shift your momentum and open up completely new paths. All right, section 3, the power of a smile and changing your aura. The author breaks down this really cool concept about our auras, or our wavelengths. You see, your heart naturally emits spiritual energy. When you're tense or angry, that wavelength is pretty harsh. But a smile? A smile acts quite literally like a remote control. Just by forming a physical smile on your face, you are changing the channel of your heart's frequency. It softens your vibration and makes your whole aura shine. The text has this beautiful rule. As a shadow follows a shape, happiness gathers around a smile. Think about that. Smiling physically removes nervous tension, and once you relax, you move into this receptive state, allowing you to receive positive, heavenly light. It's essentially a universal rule. If you project that warm, spring-like energy, happiness is naturally going to gravitate right towards you. Part 4, the impatient alien parable and escaping narrow perspectives. I absolutely love this parable. Picture this. An alien travels across the entire galaxy and finally lands on Earth, specifically in Japan. But he happens to arrive right smack in the middle of the rainy season. Day 1, it's pouring. Day 2, still pouring. So the alien just assumes this entire planet is a miserable, soggy rock. By day 3, he's out of there, leaving to drift through the cold universe all over again. But what's the tragedy here? If that alien had just waited one single month, the rainy season would have ended, and he'd have seen nothing but beautiful sunny weather. Because of one snap judgment based on a temporary condition, he abandoned all future possibilities on Earth. But seriously, how often do we act exactly like that impatient alien? We fall into these incredibly narrow perspectives. A person might look at their partner of 30 years and think, man, if only I had married someone else, I'd be so much happier, focusing entirely on the current rainy season of their relationship. The text urges us to adopt a new perspective. Instead of unnecessarily worrying, complaining, and just jumping ship, look for new viewpoints, wait for the weather to clear, put in a little effort, and you might just realize the environment you're already in is actually pretty wonderful. And finally, section 5, the art of self-praise for boosting your self-esteem. Let's be real for a second. sometimes, despite trying our absolute best, we just feel totally unappreciated. It's a tough reality, right? The text notes that, sure, we're supposed to give each other loving, kind words, but people often fall short of that. So I gotta ask you, if your boss, your spouse, or your friends aren't giving you the praise you deserve, who should? The comforting and honestly empowering answer from the source material is simply this: you must praise yourself. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. You are the one who holds the most information about your own life. You know your hidden struggles. You know your quiet victories. That means you are actually the single most qualified person on the planet to acknowledge your own growth. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what do I even praise myself for? The source gives us some incredibly grounding examples. Look at how far you've come since your childhood struggles. Or maybe you're 60 years old and still a regular employee. Praise yourself for having the passion and grit to just keep working hard. Maybe your spouse is difficult or your kids are struggling, but you are still there, enduring and caring for them. Or, hey, maybe you just managed to stay out of the hospital and stay healthy this year. For sure, even just continuing to try is a massive achievement, and it is totally worth recognizing. To actually put this into practice, the author gives us a super simple routine. Step 1, just notice when you're slipping into a depressive state or feeling stuck. Step 2, don't overdo it every single day, but take a moment maybe once a week. Step 3, intentionally look at your life and praise yourself. Literally just say to yourself, okay, I'm in a bit of a slump, but I am doing my absolute best, and I deserve some credit for getting through it. So we've covered a lot today. We talked about the bamboo note of adversity, the power of making small physical changes, shifting your aura with a simple smile, escaping that impatient alien's narrow perspective, and the vital art of boosting your own self-esteem. As we wrap up this coffee break, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Please, don't wait around for someone else to validate you. What is one thing you will genuinely praise yourself for today? Take a moment, find that answer, and let it lighten your heart. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a truly fascinating perspective on relationships, drawn directly from our source material. Listen, if you're feeling a little, exhausted by the endless swiping of modern dating apps, this one is absolutely for you. We're going to explore a unique philosophy that blends cosmic, spiritual destiny with highly proactive, down-to-earth self-improvement. So if you've ever wondered how much of romance is meant to be and how much is literally entirely up to you, well, this analysis is going to give you a whole lot to think about. Okay, let's dive into this. This brings us right to the central paradox of romance that the text really sets out to solve. On one hand, we have this massive romantic ideal that there's just one perfect person out there for us. But on the other hand, we have the practical reality of, dating, timing, and personal growth. So, are we just sitting around waiting for fate to strike? Or do we actively need to prepare the ground? Interestingly, our source material argues that it's actually a deeply intertwined combination of both.
Section 1. The Red Thread of Fate, Promises Before Birth. To really grasp this framework, we first have to look at its foundational spiritual premise. According to the text, the journey to finding a partner doesn't actually begin on a dating app or, say, at a local coffee shop. It begins long before we're even born, over in the spiritual realm. The source explains that there's a red thread of fate. In this view, marriage isn't just some earthly accident or a random collision of two people. Instead, partners actually make a pre-birth promise to each other in the spiritual world. They vow to spend decades together, to build an ideal home, and crucially, to contribute to society as a team. It really gives marriage this profound, planned, and purposeful origin story.
Section 2. Broken Threads, When Destiny Needs a Backup. But we all know earthly reality is messy, right? So what happens if wars, global events, or honestly just bad timing sever that primary red thread? Well, the text actually dismantles that rigid, sometimes super stressful myth of the one true soulmate. It reveals that everyone has 2 or 3 backup connections. These are people you've shared ties with in past lives, standing by as secondary destinies. It's essentially ensuring that even if things go wrong, circumstances don't just leave you doomed to be alone forever.
And that brings us to a really powerful piece of advice from the source. It explicitly warns against passive fatalism. The idea that you should just sit back and wait for destiny to do all the heavy lifting, or obsess over whether your current partner is your absolute primary soulmate.
Instead, personal agency is paramount here. The text urges us to cherish and nurture the connection with the person who is actually right in front of us. This isn't about settling, not at all. It's about recognizing that crossing paths at all implies a meaningful spiritual bond, one that requires your active effort to really blossom.
Section 3. The dog's tail paradox. Chasing versus attracting.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate trap of modern romance. Having established the spiritual background, how exactly should we behave in the dating world? The text uses this great metaphor of a puppy frantically spinning in circles, just dizzy and exhausted, trying to catch its own tail. It's called the dog's tail paradox. Basically, the harder you chase a partner who checks off an exact, rigid list of ideal conditions, the faster they seem to run away. But if you simply stop spinning and walk forward with purpose, the tail naturally follows right behind you.
So, the crucial point is that the text flips the script entirely. Instead of focusing outward and endlessly hunting for the perfect person, you must focus inward. The absolute priority here is to polish yourself. You kind of have to ask yourself a very serious, maybe even tough question. If my ideal partner walked into the room right now, would they want to marry me? It's a massive shift in perspective. By actively becoming the ideal, you naturally attract the ideal.
Section 4. Spiritual support. Partnering with guardian spirits. To actually achieve this transformation, the author recommends a daily routine that brings unseen forces right into your corner, beautifully merging the spiritual with the practical. According to the source, everyone has a guardian spirit who knows exactly the kind of person who will make you truly happy. The secret is to pray to this guardian spirit daily, morning and night for a good encounter. But here's the catch. It's not just a wish list to the universe. This prayer must be coupled with a strict vow to polish yourself daily and maintain a beautiful, believing heart. Your active, daily self-improvement is the actual magnet that allows your guardian spirit to guide the right person straight to you.
Section 5. Manifesting Marriage, the Power of Mental Cinema.
Let's move to and see how this builds into real-world action. So you've polished yourself, and you've met someone with whom you share a genuine connection. How do you bridge the gap between a promising encounter and a lifelong physical and psychological bond? Well, the source outlines these 4 actionable steps to manifestation. We've already covered the prayer and the self-polishing. Now we enter the visualization and behavioral phases. You have to vividly imagine married life with this person and then practically create an atmosphere that naturally makes them conscious of marriage.
To do this, the text introduces a super fascinating test called mental cinema. You essentially project a movie of your potential future with this person onto the screen of your mind. You picture the wedding day, the honeymoon, raising children together, and finally, growing old and looking back on a life well lived. But here's a really important cautionary detail. The source warns that if your mental cinema abruptly stops at the wedding day and you simply cannot picture growing old together, well, this might actually be the wrong match for you.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the final behavioral tactic that comes into play if your mental cinema flows perfectly. The text advises you to start acting the part. You subconsciously guide your partner by naturally adopting the supportive, comforting atmosphere of a spouse. By behaving in a way that makes them feel they're already in a secure, happy partnership, you gently induce a marriage proposal. You don't force it, you don't demand it. You simply create a subtle, welcoming environment where marrying you feels like the most natural next step in the entire world.
Section 6. Destiny Meets Action. Summary.
To bring this explainer full circle, the source material presents a remarkably balanced view of human relationships. The red thread of pre-birth promises and those incredibly helpful backup connections provide the invisible framework of our destiny. But the actual securing of that bond, that requires profound human effort, serious self-polishing, and practical psychological preparation. Which leaves us with this final, vital thought. In your pursuit of a happy romance and marriage, where is your energy actually going? Are you exhaustingly chasing an external ideal, or are you doing the internal work to become someone your ideal partner would want to marry? I hope this explainer has given you some powerful, practical insights into your own romantic agency. Keep polishing, keep moving forward, and we'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's explainer. I am so excited to dive into this one with you because we are looking at some seriously fascinating source material today. We're talking about a text that blends highly practical psychology with deep spiritual philosophy, and it's all aimed at one of the most universal challenges we all face, resolving family conflicts and just becoming happier in the home. Whether you're looking for a quick psychological trick to stop an argument in its tracks or a broader cosmic perspective on why your family is exactly the way it is, this explainer absolutely has something for you. Okay, I want you to picture this. It's a Tuesday, you oversleep by maybe 10 minutes, right? So the morning is instantly rushed. Breakfast isn't ready, you're a bit frantic, and then, boom, someone says the absolutely wrong thing about a piece of slightly burnt toast. Suddenly, before you even realize what's happening, a totally peaceful morning spirals into this massive, day-ruining argument. We've all been there. It happens in a flash, doesn't it? Well, the material we're exploring today tackles exactly this kind of friction and offers a very specific roadmap to not just put out those fires, but actually prevent them.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the adult trick to calm anger. Second, the power of gratitude and praise. Third, the spiritual causes of conflict. And finally, the deep bonds hidden in families. Let's jump right into section 1, the adult trick to calm family anger. Now, this is based on a really fascinating psychological principle from the text, and it's surprisingly simple. People just cannot think of two things at the exact same time. This is literally the key to diffusing someone's anger. Think about it. When a family member is furious, their brain is entirely locked onto that angry thought. So, to stop the anger, you don't argue back. You short-circuit their brain by introducing a completely new, positive thought.
The source actually calls this adapting a child trick for adults. Seriously, when a toddler's crying because you stepped away, what do? You don't try to use logic, right? You toss them a colorful toy, they look at it, and instantly the crying stops. We can do the exact same thing with adults. Step 1, you notice that anger brewing. Step 2, you hit them with a completely unexpected compliment. Like if your partner is yelling about being late, you just suddenly say, "Hey, I heard you had a massive success at work yesterday." And step 3, you watch the tension just diffuse. They physically cannot process that unexpected praise and maintain their furious momentum at the same time. The anger just snaps.
But, and this is a big but, you can't just use this trick to dodge accountability forever. The source makes it very clear that once that initial explosive anger is gone and everyone has cooled off, you absolutely have to follow up. Treat each day as a new lifetime. Later that evening, give a sincere apology for the morning rush and pair it with a small, kind gesture. The text suggests something as simple as adding an extra side dish they love at dinner. You break the negative momentum in the moment, sure, but you repair the connection later.
All right, moving on to section 2, gratitude and praise, and the real power of words.
The author makes this incredible claim here. A single moment of praise can make someone feel appreciated for up to 10 years. 10 years! We always talk about how people hold on to negative words or insults for decades, but the text points out that positive words have this amazingly long shelf life too. Even a tiny compliment can leave someone feeling validated for years to come.
And it doesn't take grand, sweeping gestures either. The text gives us some really great everyday examples. Praising a new makeup look, noticing they managed to get home just 10 minutes early, or simply acknowledging their daily grind. These little efforts cost absolutely zero money. Zero. And they don't require any real sweat, but the return on investment for the relationship is just massive.
There's a beautiful comparison in the text about this. In early romance, everything is fresh, right? Giving praise and feeling that excitement is totally effortless. But marital life, or long-term family life, is different. The author actually compares it to the sun. The sun rises every single day and literally keeps us alive. But how often do we step outside and actively thank it? Rarely, because we're just so used to it. Marriage is exactly like that. Just because your partner's efforts happen every day doesn't mean they don't need conscious, daily expressions of gratitude. You have to actively choose to thank the sun.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit for section 3, the spiritual causes of conflict.
Now, the author makes a really bold assertion here. They claim that 99% of family discord actually involves the influence of negative spiritual forces, or evil spirits. It's definitely a fascinating lens to look through. This idea that our everyday domestic squabbles are actually being amplified by external, unseen negativity.
So, how do you know if this is happening? Well, the source gives us a specific checklist of warning signs. If, in the middle of a dispute, your partner suddenly looks completely evil to you, or if you find yourself digging up past flaws from literally years ago, if there's this abrupt, unexplainable, negative shift in how you feel, if you start blaming their friends or in-laws entirely, or if you're suddenly filled with total regret over ever getting married in the first place, the author says these are clear indicators that a negative spiritual influence is actively fanning the flames of your argument.
So what's the remedy from this spiritual perspective? The text strongly advises that instead of just pointing fingers and completely blaming your partner, you have to reflect on your own mind. The concept here is that these negative spiritual forces can only latch on to the negativity attachments or condemnations that are already present inside you. by checking your own mindset and clearing your own negativity. You're basically starving that spiritual fire of its fuel.
Let's bring it all together in Section 4, the deep bonds hidden in families.
The text introduces this concept of karmic bonds. In this view, your family members aren't just random accidents of biology or circumstance. Marriages and family ties are described as deep, pre-planned connections. The author suggests that out of tens of millions of souls, you actively chose to connect with your specific partner and family members across past, present, and future lives to build an ideal environment together.
And this really applies heavily to parent-child dynamics too. The author frames these relationships as a form of spiritual education for the soul. Even those incredibly difficult parenting moments, they're actually a problem set designed specifically for your soul's growth. And interestingly, the text points out that parents often struggle so much because they're literally seeing their own hidden flaws reflected right back at them in their kids' behavior. The child is basically acting as a mirror for the parent's own self-reflection.
So I'll leave you with this. How might viewing your family as a soul's problem set, a pre-planned curriculum for your own growth, change your interactions today? If every morning argument isn't just a massive annoyance, but a chance to practice that adult trick, offer some unexpected praise, or reflect on your own mindset, how much happier could your family become? It's a pretty profound perspective shift to take away from this explainer. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep learning.
All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a framework that completely flips how we view our own potential. I mean, we're talking about shifting from just, enduring that passive daily grind to actually adopting an intentional mindset, the exact kind of mindset you need to literally attract success. Because let's be real, if you've ever felt like you're working insanely hard but just pushing against a brick wall, this breakdown is absolutely for you.
So here's the thought. Why do genuinely brilliant people sometimes fail to succeed? It's kind of wild, right? But it's a question that reveals a pretty massive truth about human achievement. We see it all the time. People with off-the-charts IQs who just can't seem to get their careers off the ground. Raw intellect simply isn't enough. It turns out you need 5 specific, magnetic tools to actually pull success towards you. So let's unpack what those are.
Starting off with number 1, the power of a smile, your first magnetic tool. This is arguably the most immediate outward behavioral tweak you can make right now. Think about it. Are you walking around with a gloomy, unapproachable face that actively pushes people away? Or are you rocking a bright, smiling face that just naturally draws colleagues and opportunities right to your desk? Even if people don't consciously realize why they're drawn to you, it creates this undeniable magnetic pull. Plus, honestly, it's a brilliant strategic move. There's this idea that a smile is the greatest method to erase hostility. And it really makes sense. If you're genuinely smiling, anyone harboring bad intentions suddenly feels like the absolute bad guy. It completely neutralizes their aggression. It really makes a simple smile your ultimate weapon in any tricky social environment.
Moving on to number 2, words as your engine, adding horsepower to your life.
So shifting from our facial expressions to our actual voices. The words you choose to use, especially when things get tough, act as the literal engine of your life. Imagine your words like a horse-drawn carriage. Every single bright, encouraging word you speak, boom, you just added another horse. Speak another one, add a second horse. You instantly increase your pulling power. If you're speaking constructively on a constant basis, you're building an absolutely unstoppable carriage. Because when you get right down to it, words are the dividing line between happiness and unhappiness. By continually adding this positive horsepower, your carriage gets exponentially stronger. You can carry way more weight, tackle way harder obstacles, and actually help more people. On the flip side, constant negative words, they just unhitch your horses until you're literally stuck in the mud. All right, number 3, the 15-minute coffee break, pacing for peak efficiency.
Now, if we want to seriously improve our work efficiency, we have to play nice with our biology, not fight it. Human biology dictates a really hard limit. Our absolute maximum threshold for maintaining intense, deep concentration is only about 3 hours. Trying to push past that with sheer brute force doesn't magically make you a better worker. Honestly, it just leads to mistakes.
That is exactly why stepping away for a brief 10 to 15-minute break is absolutely not slacking off. It's a crucial, strategic recharge. People who feel guilty about taking a short rest, they often end up totally wasting the remaining hours of their day simply because their mental focus is completely fried.
So the play here is to tackle crucial tasks when your energy peaks. Save the simple, mindless stuff, organizing your desk, sorting through junk emails, for those tired evening hours. You want to attack your most vital, heavy-lifting work right after those rejuvenating breaks, when your concentration tank is at 100%.
Which brings us to number 4, thoughts as physical blueprints, the architecture of your reality.
Okay, transitioning from external habits to our deeper internal drivers. We're talking about thought power. This isn't just some collection of fleeting, abstract ideas. It's a tangible, magnetic force. Your thoughts actually act as the architectural blueprint for the life you want to build. Think about it. You wouldn't try to build a house without a blueprint, right? Well, you can't build a successful life without one either.
Here's how this actually plays out in the real world. Step 1. You draw a super vivid, concrete goal in your mind. Step 2. Figurative passersby stop to admire it. Imagine a young person, totally broke, but they draw up this incredible, detailed blueprint for a house. Someone wealthy walks by, sees it, and offers to fund it. A carpenter sees it, gets inspired, and offers to build it. Simply by vividly envisioning a concrete goal, you naturally attract the exact cooperators, the money, and the skills needed to make the whole thing a reality. It's wild.
And finally, number 5, enthusiasm, the ultimate fuel for igniting your potential.
This right here is the grand crescendo of the whole framework. Circling back to our very first question about why brilliant people fail, well, even the smartest people on the planet will stagnate if they don't have an internal fire. Without enthusiasm, the most brilliant minds are going to fail to execute those amazing blueprints we just talked about. Raw intellect is totally useless if it isn't backed by absolute, overwhelming drive.
I love to think of it this way. No matter how good the clay or glaze is, a masterpiece cannot be baked without the intense heat of the kiln. Your intelligence, your degrees, your skills, they're just the raw clay. Sure, they look nice, but they aren't finished. Your overwhelming enthusiasm, that is the kiln's fire. That intense heat is what actually hardens the clay and creates the final masterpiece. So when we pull all of this together, you permanently shift your whole trajectory. Equip your smile to erase hostility. Rev up your positive engine with constructive words. Take those intentional breaks to respect your biological limits. Draw incredibly vivid mental blueprints. And, most importantly, ignite your enthusiasm to actually bake the masterpiece. If you do this, you shift from passively existing to actively magnetizing success.
Knowing that your thoughts literally build your reality, and your enthusiasm provides the vital heat to finish it, I want to leave you with this final exciting thought. What kind of blueprint will you draw today? What masterpiece are you going to start building right now? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.
Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we are taking a well-deserved mental coffee break. We're going to extract 5 highly practical mental shifts from our source text to help soothe the everyday friction we all experience in our relationships. I mean, imagine you're having your morning coffee, right? But your stomach is already in knots because of a lingering, awkward email exchange with a coworker, or maybe a text you deeply regret sending to a friend. The lingering stress of those interactions can literally derail your entire day. So if you've ever felt drained by a difficult colleague, overwhelmed by an intrusive acquaintance, or burdened by the guilt of your own broken promises, you are in the exact right place. We are going to dig deep into the psychological mechanics of why these interactions hurt, and more importantly, how to mentally reframe them to make your daily interactions significantly smoother and just much more rewarding.
All right, let's dive into this. Here's the menu of mental tools we're going to build today. We've got 1, the roots of happiness, 2, managing clashing personalities, 3, creating psychological boundaries, 4, the art of Zanshin, and we'll wrap up with 5, pain breeds true kindness.
Starting off with Section 1, the roots of happiness and escaping the illusion of isolation.
You know, when relationships get tough, I think our natural human instinct is often to just want to retreat and be alone. It is so tempting to think life would be an absolute breeze if we simply didn't have to deal with other people's emotional baggage. And modern life, with all its screens and remote convenience, makes it incredibly easy to fall for this illusion of isolation, the false belief that we can safely exist entirely on our own terms. But before we attempt to fix our strained relationships, we have to recognize the fundamental truth about human joy. As the source material bluntly puts it, happiness is born strictly through interactions with others. You literally cannot consider yourself an isolated existence. Being a lone wolf might spare you a bit of temporary daytime friction, but an isolated existence essentially starves your psychological baseline.
It deprives you of the very friction that actually sparks warmth and joy and a sense of shared purpose. Even if people are messy and complicated and sometimes incredibly stressful, true lasting happiness is a team sport. We absolutely need each other to be happy.
Moving right along to Section 2, Managing Clashing Personalities and the Power of Partial Acceptance.
Okay, so knowing we ultimately need people doesn't mean we're magically going to get along with everyone we encounter. We all have that one colleague or acquaintance whose very presence just sets our teeth on edge. In these scenarios, we typically fall into the trap of total rejection, seeing the person as entirely flawed and psychologically shutting them out completely. But there is a much more effective tool here: partial acceptance. This is the practice of consciously recognizing they have at least one or two good qualities without necessarily endorsing their whole personality. Like maybe they're incredibly stubborn, sure, but they're also wonderfully punctual. When you sift your mind from total rejection to partial acceptance, it triggers a powerful, silent, physical response. Think about it. When you totally reject someone, your jaw clenches, your shoulders tighten, and you project an aura of total hostility. People subconsciously feel that and push back. But finding just one good quality relaxes your internal posture. You stop radiating those defense mechanisms. And this subtle internal shift often subconsciously encourages the other person to mirror your softened attitude. You don't have to invite them to your wedding, but simply acknowledging one positive trait can completely change the entire dynamic of the room.
Next up, Section 3, Creating Psychological Boundaries and Handling the Impudent Overstepper.
But what happens when the issue isn't just a mild personality clash, but someone who actively invades your space? We are talking about the impudent overstepper. Picture that acquaintance who corners you and asks overly personal questions about your finances, your dating life, or just offers unsolicited advice. The knee-jerk reaction is often to apply an all-or-nothing friendship rule and just block their number. But the source text offers a much more sustainable approach, maintaining a measured psychological distance. You don't have to completely declare them a mortal enemy. Instead, you prevent mutual over-interference by creating a conversational buffer zone. Basically, you protect your personal space without entirely cutting them off. In practice, this means being polite but brief. It means offering a warm smile, but strictly refusing to supply the emotional details they're fishing for. By consciously protecting your personal space like this, you retain all the control. You get to decide exactly how close they're allowed to get, which effectively preserves a professional or casual relationship in a format that you can actually tolerate over the long term.
All right, Section 4, The Art of Zanshin and Rebuilding Trust After a Broken Promise.
So up until now, it's been pretty easy to look at relationship friction as something caused by other people, right? But we really need to shift the mirror toward ourselves. Sometimes we are the ones who cause the friction. We drop the ball, we failed to keep a promise, or we miss an important obligation. How do we come back from that without permanently damaging trust? Well, we can look to a profound concept from Kendo called Zanshin, which translates to lingering heart. In a Kendo match, if a fighter strikes their opponent perfectly, but immediately drops their guard or turns their back to celebrate, the referee will actually wave off the point. It doesn't count. The point is only awarded if the fighter maintains Zanshin, an unbroken focus and a lingering respectful awareness ready for whatever comes next. If we apply this to our friendships, an apology without a lingering intent to do better next time simply doesn't count. Even if you completely fail to keep a promise, you don't just mutter sorry and walk away in defeat. Showing a sincere intent to return the favor next time, demonstrating that lingering heart that truly wishes to make amends, actually preserves the foundation of deep trust. People respect the imperfect friend who earnestly desires to make things right far more than they demand an absolutely perfect friend.
Which brings us to a really big question. Where does true kindness come from? We all want to be treated with kindness, and we want to be fundamentally kind people. But where do genuine empathy and our deep capacity to truly forgive others actually originate, especially when they've wronged us?
That leads us into Section 5, Pain Breeds True Kindness and the Empathy of Sorrow.
That question brings us to the emotional climax of our explainer. We generally view our hardships, our heartbreaks, and our personal sufferings as purely negative experiences that should just be forgotten. But the source material suggests something profoundly different. It tells us that those who have actually experienced deep sorrow or setbacks acquire the unique kindness to forgive people. Think of a sharp tool, like an awl, used for piercing heavy leather. Someone who has never faced true adversity might casually poke their words into the sensitive lives of others, giving harsh, judgmental advice without ever realizing the agonizing sting of what they're doing. But someone who has hit rock bottom, they intimately understand the pain of others. They know the precise, breathless agony agony of an open emotional wound. And because they understand that pain, they develop a gentle, protective sensitivity. They refuse to use their words as a sharp tool against others. Going through deep sorrow doesn't just make you resilient, it physically alters your capacity for compassion, granting you the ultimate relationship skill, the gentle, knowing kindness to look past people's flaws and forgive them for simply being human.
So, we have to ask, will your past pain become the tool that heals your next strained relationship? The friction you've endured, those difficult clashing personalities you've had to carefully navigate, and the deep sorrows you've survived aren't just heavy weights you're forced to carry. They're the exact, finely tuned tools that give you the profound empathy, the strong psychological boundaries, and the lingering heart to build stronger, happier connections going forward. We cannot exist in isolation, but by shifting our mental approach, we can genuinely make the friction of human connection something that refines us rather than wears us down. Thank you so much for taking this mental coffee break with me today on this explainer. I really highly encourage you to take these concepts, from partial acceptance to zanshin, and apply them to an interaction in your own life this very afternoon. Until next time, keep learning.
Welcome to today's explainer. Right off the bat, I just want you to take a deep breath. Seriously, just for a second. Because if you're tuning into this, there is a really good chance you've been feeling, well, pretty overwhelmed lately by just the absolute relentless pressure of modern life. We live in this extreme hustle culture, right? We're constantly bombarded with these messages telling us we need to be vastly better, vastly richer, and just wildly more successful, like by tomorrow morning. We're told we have to optimize literally every single minute of our day, from our ridiculously early morning routines to our late-night side hustles, and frankly, it is absolutely exhausting. So, today, we are going to hit the brakes, we're going to slow down, and explore some really beautifully grounding concepts from Ryuho Okawa's teachings in a book called Coffee Break. It's this incredible collection of wisdom designed to bring a little bit of spiritual lightness and just deep clarity back into our daily grind. We're going to unpack the true purpose of our lives, and best of all, discover a highly practical, totally stress-free path to genuine self-improvement.
So, we are skipping the usual preamble today and diving straight into the deep end. Why did we come into this world? I mean, it's the ultimate human question, isn't it? It's that thought that keeps us wide awake staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. When you strip away your job title, your daily errands, that overflowing email inbox, and your perfectly curated social media feeds, what is the actual point of all this? We spend decades running on this treadmill, but we really stop to ask where the thing is even plugged in. Well, the source material gives us a remarkably clear, structured, and honestly profoundly comforting answer to this whole existential mystery.
According to the text, human life really boils down to two fundamental, deeply intertwined purposes. The first is what's called the journey of self-discovery, and this is your deeply internal quest. It's about recognizing that, hey, you were born with a highly unique personality and a very specific set of talents. Your fundamental mission is to explore that, to truly understand why you, specifically, were given this particular life and what you are uniquely suited to do in it. But, and here is the crucial catch, you cannot achieve this deep self-awareness in a vacuum. Which brings us to our second, equally vital purpose, involvement with others. You absolutely have to understand your role through society. These aren't just two separate competing paths that you choose between, they are completely codependent. Personal growth is quite literally impossible if you just isolate yourself from the world around you.
This whole idea of codependence is summed up just brilliantly by this fascinating quote from the teachings. It says, "If there were no other people and you were completely alone, you would never truly understand yourself." Just let that sink in for a second. The text is basically telling us that other people act as our mirrors. Think about it practically. If you lived entirely alone on some deserted island, you wouldn't know if you were truly a kind person, or patient, or easily angered, or generous. Why? Because there would be absolutely no one there to trigger those responses, right? There's no one to reflect those qualities back at you. We desperately need the physical and emotional presence of other human beings to reveal our own true nature to ourselves. So, this whole mirror of society concept, it isn't just about surrounding ourselves with this cozy little echo chamber of friends who constantly validate everything we do. Actually, interacting with people we like, and especially the people we deeply dislike, is exactly how we polish our souls. I love this because it completely reframes how we should look at annoying or difficult relationships. When you encounter someone with wildly different opinions, or, that one coworker who just rubs you the wrong way, your immediate instinct is probably just to avoid them. You want to walk the other way. But the text suggests this friction is incredibly valuable. Those challenging individuals, they are actually showing you a hidden part of yourself. We absolutely need those difficult, uncomfortable interactions to discover who we really are, and to find out where our boundaries and our growing edges actually lie.
And this concept of interpersonal friction builds into a much larger, really magnificent cosmic picture. The source material argues that this friction is definitely not an accident. It's not some glitch in the universe. We live in what is called a relative world, a shared, highly interactive space. The text posits that this world was intentionally created by a higher power specifically for interaction. Think of it like a grand, divine sandbox designed meticulously so that individuals can clash, cooperate, challenge, and ultimately polish each other, like stones tumbling together in a river. By engaging in this interactive friction, we deepen our self-awareness and we discover this hidden potential we never even knew we had. So, the friction, the disagreements, the social challenges, they're a feature of human existence, not a bug.
Okay, so let's completely shift gears for a minute. We've talked a lot about the grand cosmic purpose of life and the heavy, profound work of polishing our souls through human interaction. It's a beautiful philosophy, sure. But how do we actually take a step forward from today? Like, how do we achieve this growth in our incredibly busy, messy daily lives without feeling totally overwhelmed? Well, the answer lies in one simple, incredibly powerful little number: 10%.
Now, this approach is an absolute game changer for anyone who has ever failed a New Year's resolution, which is all of us, right? Or just felt completely crushed by the weight of their own ambitions. Like I said earlier, we are culturally conditioned to aim for this massive 10x or 100x overnight transformation. We want to completely reinvent ourselves by tomorrow morning. We want the instant six-pack, the immediate promotion, the overnight enlightenment. But the text warns us that this sudden, massive goal setting is actually really painful. It almost always leads directly to burnout, severe frustration, and just totally unnecessary suffering. So contrast that toxic hustle with aiming for a simple 10% upgrade. This is the comforting reality of actual human development. True, lasting growth doesn't require some heroic, agonizing leap. It just requires a gentle, consistent 10% effort from your current self. And that is what leads to steady, reasonable, and deeply sustainable development.
This philosophy makes daily improvement so beautifully accessible, mostly because you're no longer staring at an impossible mountain. The text grounds this idea in highly relatable, everyday stuff. Let's say you want to improve your finances. Okay, try to increase your income or your savings just a little bit, a mere 10%, rather than dreaming of becoming a millionaire by next Tuesday. If you are naturally introverted and you want to be more social, don't force yourself to host some massive dinner party every weekend. Just aim to be 10% more outgoing. Smile 10% more. Step outside just a bit more often. If you struggle with workplace communication, try speaking up just 10% more often in your meetings. If you feel you don't read enough, don't try to tackle a massive library in a week. Just read 10% more pages than you did last month. You see what I mean? It takes the pressure entirely off. It is completely 100% doable.
And here's the magic. When you string these small, highly achievable moments together, you build a long-term engine for sustainable growth. It's this incredibly practical cycle of reasonable development. Step 1, accept your current baseline. You have to be ruthlessly honest about where you are starting from today, and you have to do it without any guilt or self-judgment. Step 2, aim for that steady 10% upgrade based firmly on that reality. And step 3, once you hit that 10% milestone, and you definitely will because it's totally achievable, you don't stop. You establish that new level as your new baseline, and you set a brand new 10% goal. It creates this compounding, incredibly powerful journey of self-improvement. By consistently hitting these tiny, manageable benchmarks, you end up growing massively over the months and years, but the effort never actually feels overwhelming in the present moment. It's brilliant.
Now, when we scale this up, this simple little strategy builds from the individual level to a sweeping global reality. If you ever sit there and think a 10% upgrade is just way too small to matter in the grand scheme of things, consider this really profound point from the teachings. A utopia is not a fantasy. It is simply the gathering of individuals who have each grown and improved by 10%. The source material makes the incredibly grounded point that a perfect society isn't just going to magically fall out of the sky one day. It is ultimately just a collection of individuals, exactly like you and me. If one person becomes 10% happier, and then 2 people, and then 3 people, that compounding personal growth collectively creates a dramatically better world. Your small, reasonable daily upgrade actually shifts the needle for all of humanity. It spreads like wildfire.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to take into the rest of your day. What is your 10% upgrade for today? You now know that your life's fundamental purpose involves both deeply discovering yourself and polishing your soul through involvement with others. And you know, crucially, that taking a step forward from today doesn't mean you have to change absolutely everything overnight. It just requires a slight 10% shift from your current self. So what's it going to be?
Will you be 10% kinder to that really difficult, frustrating coworker, using that friction to actually grow? Will you read 10% more pages tonight to deepen your own self-discovery? Will you speak up just 10% more in your very next meeting? The path to a better you and ultimately a much better world isn't a massive, terrifying leap. It's just a 10% step. Take that step today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.